Welcome to Coffee and Sports, the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Whatever you are doing this morning, Mo and I thank you for being part of this, making us part of your morning. And Mo, how are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. Talking sports on a Friday. Let's get it.
Let's get it, Mo. We're going to start off with some quick headlines, kind of get all of our morning viewers caught up with the latest news. Washington has named QB1. Surprise to no one. It is going to be Sam Howell. Does it mean he's going to be great? Does it mean they are going to be good? That remains to be seen. But Sam Howell is QB1 in Washington. Jumping over to baseball, Chicago White Sox shortstop Tim Anderson has issued an apology for his role in the baseball brawl from a week or so ago. I get it, but at the same time, Mo, you fight. Don't say you're sorry for it a week and a half later. Now, come on, it was a good fight.
And don't say it in front of Prime because he don't want to hear that.
No, he does not. He does not want to hear
that.
Also in Major League Baseball news, number one prospect Jackson Holliday for the Baltimore Orioles is rumored that he is going to be called up potentially at some point this season. If you are an Orioles fan, it's great. You're in first place. You're going to see the future. Great time to have baseball in Baltimore. Also in baseball, insiders are reporting that it is likely that Rays shortstop Wander Franco will not play baseball again in the major leagues, as it looks like some of the allegations that are being investigated are likely to be true. But obviously, we'll wait until that investigation is wrapped up to fully understand the outcome of that. In WWE news, Lacey Evans appears to have been released from her contract as a WWE superstar. According to her Instagram, she is now formally known as WWE superstar Lacey Evans. In Michael Orr news, apparently in 2011, Michael Orr's first book, he acknowledged that he knew he was under a conservatorship. Go figure. And then, Mo, yesterday, Stanford, and this is interesting. Usually you have the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or the SEC. They're usually the ones trying to bring teams in, right? They want to make their conference bigger and better. Stanford has made an offer to the ACC. They would like to join, and they are willing to have a reduced or even zero media rights payout. Mo, have we reached the point in college football where if you are a Stanford, it is better just to be a part of a semi-recognizable conference and not make the money as opposed to not being part of one at all? Because that's essentially what Stanford is saying, right? Like, they're looking around the college football landscape. They realize that they're not going to be a part of the SEC. They're not going to be a part of the Big Ten. They're not going to be a part of one of the big conferences. But at the same time, they don't want to be left out.
Right.
So is this them just latching on to what they hope is their best opportunity and hoping that the ACC will take them? And they're being like, you don't even got to pay us. We just want to be here. Is that what it's coming to?
I feel like they're at the point where they just want to be part of something, right? They don't want to be left. They don't want to be left out in the cold. And I have to admit, this is very unique. They don't want none of the money. You don't want no money? Who doesn't want money?
They may want it, but maybe they're like, the ACC isn't going to give it to us.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. It's not like the ACC was knocking on their door like, come on, Stanford. You know what I mean? Like Stanford is trying to take the ACC out to dinner and talk to them. So, yeah, I get it. They're making this concession like it's not even about the money. If you just make us part of you. You know, the landscape is changing, it seems like, every day, literally every day in college football. And really right now, it's a lot about remaining relevant if you're a big-time university. So
and Stanford's interesting because they're not known necessarily for their football program. They are definitely known for their academics, but they have shown over the years they at least try in football, right? You know, Harbaugh was there at one point. Every, cycle of coaches, every now and then they bring in a decent name at a head coach. So Stanford, although they're not a football powerhouse, if you look at some of the other schools, like a Cal, for example, is Cal really trying? And come on. Yes, Cal's produced some quarterbacks, but is Cal really trying in football? I would argue that Stanford at least put in more effort into it than a Cal is. But even with that, they have to go to a conference and be like, please,
right,
please take us.
Yeah, if that's so unique because, like you said, you are talking about one of the bigger name academic schools. So it's not like Stanford is nobody. This is Stanford, and they haven't had dominant football teams, but they have fielded some competitive football teams, like you spoke upon. So I really think it's very unique that they come to the ACC hat in hand and say, just think about it. You know what I mean? Get back to us and just think about it. But we're so serious, we don't even want any money. We're so just to let you know ahead of time, that's how serious we are. That's how committed we are to you.
It's a great pitch. Another great pitch that's happening right now is coming from the New York Jets. Rumors, and not even rumors, reports have surfaced out of the New York Jets facility that they are interested in making a trade for tackle. And I always say his name wrong, Mo, and I love his last name, and I always pronounce it wrong.
I've chopped it
David
up. Go ahead.
David Bakhtiari. I think Bakhtiari. I got it right this time.
I think
David
Bakhtiari hit. I think you hit it.
I hit it. David Bakhtiari is all pro tackle for the Green Bay Packers, and now the Jets want him. So let's look at what this is. Aaron Rodgers, the last few days, has got popped in practice. He's got popped against the Buccaneers in their inter-squad mingles. And Aaron Rodgers is looking around like, we need to fix this, guys. I got a guy in Green Bay. We're buds. Can we go get him? So now the Jets are saying, of course we can try to go get him, Aaron. Anything for you, sir.
Right.
But Mo, if you're Green Bay, why? Why would you? You have a young quarterback to protect. Tackles don't just grow on trees in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Ask the New York Jets. They got a 38-year-old one, and they got a 20-something-year-old one who is so out of shape, he has to keep pulling himself off the damn field because he's worried about his knees falling apart or some nonsense. And they think the Green Bay Packers are just going to give up the biggest piece of their offensive line?
Yeah. And why would Green Bay do that? Why would they want to do Aaron Rodgers a solid? For what reason? You would have to do such an overreach of an offer for me to even consider doing it. Like you said, this is Jordan Love's, we could call it his make or break year, more or less, to show he's going to be the guy. And we need to set him up for success as best we can. And you want to trade away your best lineman? That's not a good look. You're going to mostly rely on your run game. So I'm sure that Dylan and Aaron Jones would like to have that guy up front. Okay. So I don't understand why Green Bay would ever consider it. I get why Aaron Rodgers wants it to happen, but I don't know why Green Bay would even consider it.
If I'm Green Bay, I'll take the phone call and I'll speak first. And I'll say, listen, I know what you're calling about. I know what you're looking for. And we can talk when the first name on your offer sheet is Sauce Gardner or Breece Hall.
Wow.
If one of those names are on the offer sheet, we can talk. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Why? Because again, obviously the Jets aren't going to trade either of those players.
Right.
But if you're Green Bay, you know what they're doing. They have a very small window with your former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who, let's be honest, you're probably still not that happy with, because now all of a sudden you're watching Aaron with his new girl, and he's the perfect boyfriend. He's the perfect guy over there.
He's the perfect gentleman.
He's taking the kids to concerts. He's taking the kids to dinner. He's giving money back to the franchise. And if you're Green Bay, you're sitting here like, really? You couldn't do that your last couple of years? We got kids that you could have taken to the concerts. We got kids. We begged you. We begged you to come hang out with the kids last summer, but you were busy. You didn't want to. And now you want us to give away the piece of our offensive line so you don't get hit? Come on now, Aaron. We'll do it. We'll listen, but you better pay us so much more than he is worth. How bad do you want it? And I get it. The Jets would be stupid to make that deal. But at the same time, Mo, it brings us back to something we've talked about numerous times. what are the Jets going to do with the offensive line? If it's an issue now in practice against their own defense and inter-squad practices against Tampa Bay, look at the first 6 games on their schedule. It's not going away.
It's not going away, and it was going to be a problem entering the season. And like you said, you have a small window. We're thinking best case scenario, you have him for 2, maybe 3 years, and that's assuming those are 3 successful years to some degree. You have to do. They went all in, Chris. They went all in. So the thing is, you need to go in even more. If you don't have to double down, you need to triple down. Whatever you can do, whatever assets you have to improve that offensive line for that guy, if you want to get the most out of him, then you do it. And if that means trading away some future assets, some picks, then you do it. Now, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't trade away Sauce Gardner. I mean, you know what, though? In this league right now, where we're at, is the corner more valuable than that lineman? Probably not. Corners have great value, but at the end of the day, if that lineman is a star level or superstar level lineman, they prevent the rush from coming in. You can have the best corner in the world, but if your guys up front can't get any pressure, at some point you're going to get cooked. So
now, let me ask you this, Mo. And I know we talk about the running back position all the time. If the running back position is as devalued as we think it is, and running backs really are a dime a dozen, would it be ridiculous to trade Breece Hall? You have Dalvin Cook this year. The running back, I'm not saying that Breece Hall isn't a great running back. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is, no one pays running backs a lot of money. You can draft them anywhere in the draft. It's not going to necessarily hurt you this year because you will still have Dalvin Cook and you'll still have Michael Carter. So, and I'm not saying Green Bay wants Breece Hall, but if you can open up the conversation with Breece Hall and a 2nd-round draft pick, which I think would be overpaying, but like you said, if they're going to acquire this player, they're going to have to overpay.
They are.
But I think you can better lose Breece Hall in the grand scheme of things and not hurt any particular unit on your team. Obviously, if you lose Sauce, you're hurting the defense right away.
Yes.
If you lose Wilson, you're hurting the wide receiver group right away. You lose Breece Hall, you're like, it'd be great to have 2 A backs back there, but we still got 1 A- back, and then we got a B back in Carter.
Right.
Could they survive that?
Could you survive without Breece Hall? Absolutely. Let's be real. I mean, we're going by what the league tells us, right? We'll just go out and get another Breece Hall next year in the 3rd round or the 4th round. That's what the league tells us. So if it came to that, and you're still going to overpay, like you said, you're going to throw in that 2nd-round pick, right? But yes, in a heartbeat, if the Packers would bite on that, I'm making that deal tonight.
Yeah, because again, you need to protect QB1. And like I talked about yesterday, Mo, Aaron gets a little cranky when he gets hit. Aaron gets a little cranky when he's not comfortable. And he's already saying, he was saying yesterday, Mo, he was saying things like, we're competing here. There's spots open. Spots are up for grabs. Translation, Aaron wants a new O-line. And spots up for grabs means they're not for you guys in the building. Clearly, no one in the Jets building is reaching for those spots. Aaron's telling leadership they're up for grabs. Go find people that can grab them because no one here is doing it. So hopefully that gets straightened out. Let's jump to college football real quick. I don't talk a lot of college football, but we're going to do it right now, and we're going to do it with the Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns this season. He isn't the most mature guy. He isn't the most refined guy in the pocket. I think those are all fair things, but he's trying to improve himself, Mo. He has shaved the mullet. He has a more professional look about him. He's trying to clean up some of the noise on the outside of the football field and focus more on football. All respectable things from this young man. However, that being said, if you look at Quinn and his record against good teams as opposed to his record against non-ranked teams and not really good teams, there's a stark difference. He rolls over the competition when Texas is the superior team. When Texas is not the superior team and they're on par, or Texas may be a half a step behind, he hasn't played well. And that's because of some of the things I just mentioned. He's a little wild in the pocket. His thought process and the way he breaks down the field is a little bit inconsistent. So, Mo, I bring you this question. Texas can't lose more than 2 games this year. With the roster that they have, which might be, for them, one of their best rosters in the last 10 years or so, and the way the college football landscape is setting up, Texas needs to, at most, be a 2-loss team. They play Alabama early in their schedule. If they lose to Alabama and Ewers is looking erratic, as we think he might, because nothing he has done thus far has shown us that he's going to be the model of consistency, do you think there's a chance they bench Ewers and start Arch Manning at some point this season? Because I would argue that Arch is probably the better quarterback overall than Ewers, but I don't know if Arch is ready. I think that Arch's skill set is probably more complete than Ewers' skill set, but I would also argue they're probably in different spots developmentally, and that's why Ewers needs to start. But if things start going awry with Ewers, do you see the chance that Arch takes the field this season as a starting quarterback in Texas?
You know what? When I saw this question last night, I thought immediately, yeah, he's going to play. I think Manning Jr. is going to play. I really believe that. I was looking at film on both of them, and for a young guy, he doesn't have a big arm, but Manning can make a lot of the tough throws that you need to be able to make on the outside, over the middle, on the seams. But the question really is he ready? What I would say is his timeline is this simple. If Ewers doesn't look good early, I think he's going to get a hook. I think he has a very short leash because, like you said, 2 games at the most. And most people, including myself, would assume the Alabama game's a loss. That's a loss. It might be closer than most think, but I think it's a loss. He can't afford to lose more than one. And I'll go this far. If they lose to Alabama and he looks awful, let's say he doesn't even look remotely assured of himself. He's erratic, throws some picks, just shows signs of deer in the headlights. He might get removed after that game. I think the Texas boosters, the Texas fan base, they have high expectations for this team. And as you said, the only question mark with the Longhorns, top to bottom, is what you're going to get from your QB. And if he looks bad early, no question Manning's going to get in the game. Now, the question is, when they put Manning in, what if Manning struggles? You know, like you said, is he ready? What if Manning struggles? Do they go back to Ewers? Because I'm not sure you can do that. You might have to just ride that out and commit to Archie Manning Jr.
So they open with Rice. You know, that should be a stroll in the
Well,
park.
it should be a smackdown, right?
Yeah, that should be a stroll in the park. That should be the tune-up game for Alabama. Alabama happens week 2, September 9th. So right away, if they lose to Alabama, they're 1-1. Now, sometimes it's good to lose early in the season. Other times, you know, you can look at it, well, now that's a little more pressure on you because now you got a longer slate of games that you know you can't stumble in.
Right.
After Alabama, September 23rd, they got Baylor. I'm not saying Baylor's great, but I'm saying they have a good defense. So, you know, if he's struggling, if he's a little erratic, could that be the opportunity where we see a change? They got Oklahoma in early October. They got Kansas State November 4th. They got TCU right after that. I mean, there's some moments in this schedule. Alabama isn't the only team they play. So it's not like they have a schedule set up where they look at it and they go, win or lose against Alabama, we should easily be able to take care of business the rest of the schedule. That's not the case. They have a couple of other teams on there where they could very easily lose if Ewers is having an up and down season.
And don't forget, Oklahoma's a rivalry game, right? So sometimes even though one team is projected over the other, it doesn't matter. During a rivalry game, another team, maybe a lesser ranked team, elevates themselves for that rivalry. They get up for. So records go out, rosters go out, and then you hit the field. I think Texas is the better team, but I'm saying that assuming that Ewers will be pretty solid, at least early in the season. I could be wrong.
Well, speaking of being wrong, Mo, I think I was wrong. And I think this week has really showed me that maybe on some level I have disrespected the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm seeing all these reports about, Brock Purdy's throwing all these picks in training camp and practice. And I'm thinking about the elbow on his throwing arm. And I'm seeing reports that Darnold has outplayed Purdy in camp, which, he's the next incarnation of Steve Young. So that makes sense. But Darnold's outplaying Purdy. Trey Lance is a train wreck. San Francisco has a really great team on paper outside of the quarterback situation. But doesn't Seattle also have a pretty good team on paper, including the quarterback situation? I mean, I'm not saying Seattle has an A-plus quarterback, but we know what they have in their quarterback, and we know he's a B-plus guy. He did that last season. They had a good draft this year and last year. Wouldn't they bring back the same coach so they have stability in the organization? Am I wrong? Was I wrong? Was I disrespectful to Seattle? Is Seattle actually the team to beat in that division, Mo?
I do think that it's closer than what maybe you or I and others may have projected, only because not just that the Niners, Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller, and most people within the league or even fans assume no matter who's at quarterback, he can coach them up, set them up for success. And the Niners, even if you're an average quarterback, are going to win 10 or 11 games, right? You can write that off because they're so strong across the board. But the truth is, they lost a lot of players this offseason. They lost a lot of guys. They've brought some people in, but when you lose a staple like they had at right tackle, and they didn't really replace that, that's a problem. When the offensive line isn't as good as it had been in previous years, I think that's going to be a problem. Whether it's Purdy or even the second coming of Steve Young, that's going to be a problem. So I'm not saying the Niners are going to have an awful year, but what I am saying is when you look at Seattle and what they've added in depth on their defense, on their offensive line, and then you look at their skill positions, if you went player for player, you could argue their receiving core is better than the Niners receiving core. And I'm a Niners fan, and I wouldn't argue with you. I think if you just go on an individual level, they are better. And if Geno can be what he was for most of last year, even if he takes a step back, but be somewhere near that, they are going to be a very good team. So maybe I should amend my pick. I think the Niners win the division, but I think it's a lot closer, and it wouldn't surprise me if Seattle won it.
And that's kind of what I'm feeling. I'm kind of feeling that, Seattle wasn't shown the proper amount of love. And looking across the NFL year in and year out, one of the things that kind of dominates the NFL is the quarterback coach combo, right? If the coach is a quality coach, which is what Seattle has, and the quarterback can be consistent and slightly above competent in a good system, you usually see good results. And that's what we saw last year with Seattle. Geno Smith, now there were times where I think he played above his skis, but even if you level out Geno's performance last year, I would argue he was a B-plus quarterback. And if you look at the pieces around him, he's not going to be asked to be an A-plus quarterback. Now, there might be games where he gets into shootouts and he may have to dig a little deep and he might lose those games. But generally speaking, look at what around him on both sides of the ball, where if he can be above average, should win most of the season. With that in mind, then I look at San Francisco, and I don't even know is Purdy even going to start the season. I know they're saying he's healthy, but if he's throwing all these picks in practice, is it because of the elbow? Is the arm strength not quite back yet?
He doesn't look healthy to me.
He doesn't look healthy. You're right. And like you said before, arm strength isn't necessarily his go-to thing. That isn't something
Right.
that he flashed all over the place last year. It's something that we needed to see more of him. So if he's firing a bum cannon and arm strength already wasn't one of his greatest attributes, maybe I do sit him for the first couple of weeks just to, if that's going to get him healthier. And I roll with Sam Darnold for the first couple of weeks and hope that, he can win a game or two. But even then, is that the situation that you want to be in if you're supposed to be a favorite to win the division? I think there's just so many questions in the quarterback room right now with San Francisco. And then if you take a step back even further, Mo, you're looking at that quarterback room going, it's Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, and Trey Lance. Even on face value, you don't have an A quarterback in there. You don't even know if any of those guys can be your franchise quarterback.
Right.
And on the surface, your initial reaction is, well, no, Trey's not the guy for the franchise. Darnold's not the guy for the franchise. You're hoping Purdy is, but you've only seen him play half a season. Right. So there's so many questions in the San Francisco quarterback room, and there's none of those in Seattle. In Seattle, you look at it and you're like, we got Geno this year. We might have Geno next year, and we're good with that. We're going to roll with that until Geno proves that he can't handle it, and then we can talk about it. It's a different vibe.
It is a different
vibe.
And I
feel like when there's that many questions, Mo, unless Purdy just comes out and picks up where he left off week one, I feel like we're going to keep asking. We'll see. We'll see what happens in San Francisco. We'll see what it turns out to be. But at this point, we are going to welcome Brett show.
What's good, everyone?
Brett?
How's it going, Mo? How's it going, Chris?
Great, baby. What's up?
Oh, not much. Ready to talk some sports.
I think Chris is having some technical difficulties, but we'll be all right. We'll chop it up either way. How are you feeling about your Packers? How are you feeling about Jordan Love? You made a really good comment that you can understand why people are a little bit indecisive about what the Packers will be. But as a Packers fan, do you see signs of what they could be, or could they overachieve the projected amount of wins that most people have them having?
I think so. I think because I was watching Sideline to Sideline yesterday, and I saw that their win total is set at like 7.5.
Right. And
I can see a scenario when both they beat that and go lower than that. To me, it's going to come down to really Jordan Love and if those receivers can step up. I think Christian Watson has the potential to be a top I think he can be a top 20 receiver in the league this year. He has the size. He has the potential. He has the athleticism. He has the speed. He has the tools to do it. Maybe top 20 is a little too soon for a second year. Maybe we're talking like top 25, but I think he's going to have a breakout year. We're going to have a top 5 running back room in the league, or could easily have a top 10 defense if Joe Barry decides to start calling real plays before week 10 this year. So I see a potential where we beat that 7.5 mark, but at the same time, there's no guarantee that Jordan Love ends up being as good as he looks in practice. There's no guarantee that these receivers can stay healthy. Christian Watson had injury issues and drop issues. Dobbs had injury issues last year. So I'm hopeful that if everybody stays healthy and we play to our full potential, we can still at least we can be in most games we can battle and maybe even make a nice surprise run at the division.
And as a fan, let me ask you this, Brett. Let's say you exceed expectations, not by a lot, but let's just say they win 8 games and you're competitive in most of your games. And Jordan Love, he doesn't blow you away, but let's say he throws for 24 touchdowns and 6 picks. But your run game carries you. Would that be enough for you as a fan that when you look at what Jordan Love did as a leader going forward, that you could say, I think this guy can still elevate. I think this guy could be QB1 going forward.
I think if he did that, I think that would definitely at least buy him another year or two. I think you give him maybe a 3-year deal at that point and fully guarantee the money in the first year. And then after that, they're voidable years to see what he's really made out of.
Gotcha.
But I think if he did that, then he absolutely would buy himself another year. I'd be really happy with those numbers.
Okay. Chris is back. What's up, Chris?
And I agree. I think if Jordan was in there, hey, I try. I think he comes in there A minus. Is that the not? But right the ship and keep it kind of stable and afloat, then I think that's going to be enough to get Jordan needs to go. So, gentlemen, let's kind of switch gears here and shift to some NBA stuff this morning. NBA.com recently power ranked the Western Conference teams. And maybe to know number one, so we'll leave that as it is. That's a fair place to put the reigning NBA champion. But let's go further, and we're going to start with the number 2 team, which is currently, according to NBA.com, the Phoenix Suns. This one's interesting because there was a lot of questions when the Phoenix Suns made the move they did end of last year, middle of last year, and coming into this.
I think Chris is having technical difficulties again.
Phoenix Suns, I think number 2 is about the right spot for them. I don't think they necessarily finish second in the Western Conference just because they do have older players, and I think you're going to see a lot of rest days with them. So they might end up being like a 3rd or 4th seed, but I still think talent-wise, yeah, second in the Western Conference sounds right. They made some nice moves, brought in Eric Gordon and a couple other great pieces to solidify that bench. So I like them at the 2 spot. I really do.
I feel like Phoenix is going to be better in the regular season than they are in the postseason. I'm just saying when you look at those 3 players, I don't really – I've never really thought Bradley Beal was somebody that was conducive to being a winner as the best player. I think he's finally in his best role as a 3rd option, and so he should excel in that role. I think Booker's going to have another great year, be very efficient. KD will still be KD, but to me, you can see the signs of slippage. Father Time is undefeated. We have to remember a lot of these great players in this era, they are playing 16, 17 years. Whereas back in the day, they might have played 10 or 12 years. Like, they are playing longer. They are sustaining a high level of production a lot longer than guys did before. So I'm giving KD credit for that, but there are signs, like defensively, I used to say he was a capable, solid defender, but when you watch him now, he can't move laterally at all. Like, the way people used to call Chris Paul a cone, KD's a cone. He can't stay in front of anybody either. And Booker's not known for defense. He might try very hard at it, but he's not very good at it. And Bradley Beal's not guarding anybody. So I think the Suns will be fun to watch. And I think they did a really good job in the offseason of signing some of these minimum veterans, but they're capable, proven veterans who it's low risk, high reward, right? They did a great job with what they had filling out that roster. So I don't have the problem where they're ranked, but I would challenge anybody to tell me that you actually see the Phoenix Suns in the conference finals, because I don't.
I don't honestly. I don't see it either. I think another issue with Phoenix is they have a bunch of guys who I'd consider secondary playmakers. They don't have a guy that's really going to run an offense. They have a lot of guys that can play make, but will look to score first.
Right.
So I think we're going to see a lot of offense that's just going to dissolve into iso ball. It's just going to be really stagnant. We're going to have KD's going to look to score before he passes. Same with D-Book and Bradley Beal. And I think that's going to be their downfall. There's not going to be any movement, and they're not going to have a primary playmaker to really get everybody involved. It's just going to be everybody focused on themselves.
I think you're right. So they are all secondary playmakers. Bradley Beal, though, actually is more of a combo guard. He can play point. He can play the point. I'm not saying that's what they're going to ask him to do, but with Book averaging over 5 assists a game, Beal over 5 assists a game, and KD right at 5, I think they're going to do it playmaker by committee, and I think that can work in the playoffs or in the regular season. But in the playoffs, when the floor shrinks and games get tighter and you need someone that can get you in your sets, get you coming off that screen or that pin down, that's when it's going to hurt them. I really thought they were going to make a play and try to acquire Mike Conley, and maybe they will during the course of the season when they realize their shortcomings. But I'm not surprised about where they're ranked.
So third and fourth on the power rankings for NBA.com. Third is the Lakers, and fourth is the Golden State Warriors. Mo, 3 and 4, they're in the correct spots. Are the Lakers or Warriors too high in your opinion? Those are both older teams.
They are older teams, but the Nuggets notwithstanding, most teams that win titles are older teams for whatever reason. They just are. The NBA is a young man's game in the regular season, and the veteran teams seem to take over in the postseason. And the Nuggets aren't like babies. They weren't like 22 years old. I mean, guys now, you can be 22 years old and be a 4-year veteran. So, but they were a younger team in the sense that Joker's 27 and Aaron Gordon's 26, 28, and I think Jamal Murray is around 25. So their core, throw in Porter Jr., who's probably 23, their core is young. And they're properly ranked number 1. The Lakers are an older team, but top to bottom with what they've done, I would have had them ranked in the top 4. Now you can flip a coin on should they be third or fourth, but I would have had them top 4. And I might be one of the few people that think that Golden State is being vastly underrated, because I would have Golden State in my top 4. I would actually have them number 3 ahead of the Lakers. And people can go, well, what about the size difference and what hurt them? That was last year. And you have to take every season as an individual season. I think the addition of Chris Paul, like Steve Kerr said, and I agreed with him as soon as they made that move, when everybody else said he doesn't fit their style, he's not there to play their style. He's there to play his style. So when he's on the floor, you're going to see a lot of high pick and roll. You're going to see a lot of him creating mismatches and then attacking the bigs who are out of their element, playing him in space and doing what he does best, set guys up for easy buckets or create an easy shot for himself with the mid-range. So I like that addition. And let's remember, they missed Andrew Wiggins for a long period of time. The Golden State Warriors whole, I'm talking about their complete roster, top to bottom, and with the additions that they've made, I think they have one more run in them. I truly believe that. Now, will it lead to them winning another title? I'm not so sure about that, but I think they have another deep playoff run in that core.
No, I agree. I think I like the 3 and 4 as well. I think the Lakers had a really good offseason, especially they kept all their key pieces, bringing back, even though he struggled in the playoffs. They brought back D'Lo on a reasonable contract that they can flip later if needed. Bringing in Gabe Vincent, that was a nice touch. Re-signing Austin Reeves, bringing back Rui, who had an absolute phenomenal postseason.
Rui was great in postseason.
Like, do I think he's going to shoot 52% from 3 next postseason? No, but if he can stay elite or even close somewhat in like the 40s next year, that will be a big boost for them. And I agree with the whole Warriors thing. On paper, when you look at it from the outside, yeah, Chris Paul doesn't really fit their style of basketball, but they're not going to make him play their style of basketball. It's going to be a nice little curveball change of pace. And we look at like what Chris Paul did with the Thunder. I think he's really going to come in, and I think the biggest benefactor are going to be guys like Looney's going to be a really big benefactor.
Kuminga,
I was about to say him. Like Moses Moody will be huge in playing with. Like these young guys, I think Chris Paul will really, really elevate to the next level. And if there's anybody that can elevate these guys, it's CP3.
I agree. I think that Kuminga, if he's active, if he's watching what's going on, if he's watching what Chris Paul is doing, if they can get a connection going, Kuminga is going to get so many lobs, so many dunks, so many easy layups just off of movement, off of what Chris Paul does in any kind of pick and roll or screen and roll action. Like I said, to me, he just gives them a curveball. Not to mention, he's not going to play 35, 40 minutes. That's not what they want from Chris Paul, and you shouldn't at this stage in his career. I'm thinking he's going to play around 25 or 28 minutes a game, and he'll probably, depending on the matchups, he'll be in their closing lineups, depending on the matchups, right? So I don't know what Golden State's going to look like once the playoffs start, because I'm not sure they're done. You know how the veteran teams are, Brett. I don't have to tell you. As we get closer into the year, everybody start looking at the buyout market, right? If you can't get nothing during the trade deadline, you start looking at the buyout market, and maybe they find somebody in the buyout market that can benefit them and get into their rotation. So what they look like right now today, I would have had them ranked in the top 5 for sure.
And not to mention that, even though his defense has slipped, I still think a second unit with him, Gary Payton, the second, I think that's just going to be a tough unit to score on, honestly. They're going to come in, they're going to play some real stingy defense on that second unit.
And look, I know a lot of people are wondering about where the Grizzlies are ranked. I would have the Grizzlies ranked in my top 5 in the West. I know they're going to have to survive Morant being out, and I think they will. The addition of Marcus Smart is going to solidify that team, unify that team, and bring a strong veteran voice to that locker room. So I think they'll be fine. Look, if we talk about a lot of teams being whole, but if John Morant can focus on what's on the court and just make better decisions off the court, combined with what they have coming back with Desmond Bane, another year with Jackson Jr. improving. Now you have Marcus Smart. You're getting Clark back, who's a big part of their unit. Steven Adams will be back. So you've got added more size, more depth. The Memphis Grizzlies whole is going to be a problem.
Oh, absolutely. And then you added Marcus Smart to that team, DPOI last year, teaming up with Jaren Jackson, Brendan Clark, Steven Adams. That defense is going to be tough. You're not even going to be able to really penetrate. And if you finally get to penetrate, then Jackson's going to be waiting for you at the rim. So I love the addition of Smart. I think that's really going to help them. And if John Morant can come back and strictly focus on basketball, this is easily a top 5 team, and this team could make to most would probably be a surprise, a nice surprise run to the Western Conference Finals, honestly. I could see it.
I think a team that we're not talking about that we should talk about, look, because health matters across the board throughout the league, throughout any major sport. But if the Pelicans put together the starting 5 they've been teasing us with the last couple of years, where you've got Brandon Ingram, you've got Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, when you've got Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, I'm just saying, just what they can put on the floor potentially if Zion, let's say he can hold up for 60 to 65 games, they're going to be a top 5 seed.
Well, yeah, I say we got to remember too, when Zion was healthy before he went down for those 20 games he played or so last year, they were the first seed before he got hurt, or first or second. They were battling. You added Zion, you give an intense rim presence, and now you got Jonas to space the floor, B.I., McCollum. That team just becomes complete. And like I said, before he went down, you were looking at the number 1 seed in the West, and they were right there with Denver before he got hurt. So I agree. If Zion can stay healthy, or at least get healthy and get hot at the right time towards the end of the year, that team is going to be dangerous, and they're going to make a deep run.
If they're whole, think about what they do, because everybody gets into their proper role. Zion becomes the number 1 option. B.I. has number 1 option skill, but he'll be the number 2. And then Trey Murphy, nobody talks about him. Trey Murphy is elevating. He's coming up. He will be their 3rd leading scorer. And CJ will be, and it'll be a luxury to say this, CJ will be the 4th leading scorer. This team has 4 guys in a league that struggles to find people that can create off the bounce. This team has 4 guys in their starting lineup that can create their own shot off the bounce.
And, of course, you can't forget they have one of the best defenders in the league. They can bring in Herb Jones at any time to lock up anybody, put him along with Trey Murphy, and you got 2 people that are getting clamped up.
And let's not leave out, if he's healthy, Grand Theft Alvarado. Alvarado's a great on-ball pass. This team is built for it's a young team when you look at their core top to bottom, other than Valanciunas and CJ. It's a very young team, but it's one of those teams that it wouldn't stun me if all is said and done, they're one of the top 3 teams in the West because of their overall depth and their talent.
Oh, 100% agreed. And what's scary about this team is they're so young that they're only going to get better as long as they can get their health in order. This team will probably be a top 3 team in the West health permitting for years to come, not just this year either.
Let me ask you, both teams healthy, who's better, Oklahoma City or the Pelicans?
Both teams healthy, Pelicans.
I'm with you. I agree.
I think the Thunder.
I love Shea, but when you look at the combination that Zion's working with BI, with Murphy, with CJ, I just think they have more overall firepower.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the X factor of the Thunder is end up going to be Chet Holmgren.
Yeah,
we haven't seen him since suffered that injury. Really, we saw him a bit in preseason, so I think that team's going to be fun. I think they're going to be good, but I think it's going to come down to what will they get out of Chet, because I think Chet could push them from a play-in spot to battling for a playoff spot. But
I agree. Look, young, very young, talented team. When you look at that core, I think the old man on that team is Shea, and he's 24, 25, and everybody else is like they're like college age, right? 22 and under. That's how talented they are across the board. And I think as they're developing, they're going to become more and more scarier. Like Shea is the guy that can get his own shot with ease right now. But when you look at what Chet could do if he's healthy, and I'm just thinking about what Chet can do, Brett, defensively, because I'm looking at Chet, I'm looking at how he can move, because when he's right, he doesn't move like a 7-footer. He actually moves like a wing player defensively. So he can go side to side very well. You can blow by him, but he has the quickness and athleticism to recover and still meet you at the rim and block your shot. I think that there's a good chance that Chet and Big Vic are going to be probably, I'll say, top 3 in block shots this season.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree. Like, just that's what I was thinking too. That's how much potential they have on defense. Just even if their offensive game just becomes a disappointment, just based on how long they are, how athletic they are, their defense alone, they're going to be in this league for a long time. We've seen with guys like Rudy Gobert, people get paid for defense. So I think Victor and Chet will be in this league for a long time, except if that offensive game develops, you're looking at 2 guys who are probably going to become top 5, top 10 centers in the league. I think they both have top 5 potential. I think Victor could be easily the second best center, first if Jokic falls off a cliff at any point. And I think Chet could easily grow into a top 5 center as well.
And you're right. Look, they will struggle some on offense, and some of that has to do with just the fact that even though they're long and they're talented, they struggle posting up because they really can't back people down. They've got to adjust to the speed and the physicality of the game on the other side of the ball. But I think that because they are athletic and they are agile, they will carry you or carry themselves because of how they impact the game defensively. I think right now, today, both of those guys are low double-double guys, right? So maybe they're not dropping 20 points a game offensively, but I don't think it's unrealistic to say maybe around 15 points a game, 10 or 11 rebounds with 3 or 4 blocks.
So we're literally talking about who I have as number 1 and 2 for Rookie of the Year race this year. Victor at 1, Chet at 2, Scoot Henderson at 3.
Speaking of Scoot Henderson, knowing what we know right now with the situation in Portland, assuming, because there's no active trade out there for Damian Lillard, other than the package that Miami offered, nobody else has really put forth the package because we all know Dame has made it known he doesn't want to go anywhere else. So my question to you is, if Dame is on the roster, a roster that already has Scoot Henderson on it, don't forget they've also got what is the young man with the hops innovation?
They have a
Jaden Sharp with the hops, and Miles. What is his last name? Miles.
Oh,
the 2
Anthony
guards.
Simons.
That's it. I'm sorry, Anthony. I misspoke. Anthony Simons is already a guy that can drop 20 plus a night. He can create off the dribble. I guess what I'm trying to say is they're all there. You want to see them all on the floor playing. I'm talking about the 3 young players. What role will Dame have on the Blazers if he's still on the Blazers when everybody knows that he wants to leave? Because do you risk playing him his normal 35, 36 minutes a game and risk injury when you're trying to move him? Or do you give the bulk of the minutes to the younger guys who need the playing time, who need the chance to develop on the fly? I guess that's the question mark. What do you do with Dame?
I think you play him, but you play him low minutes. You want to show everybody, hey, look at this. Dame looks really good. Look at him pulling up from 35. He's 5 of 6 for 3. Look at this. But you don't want to take reps from Scoot, from Simons, and from Shane Sharp because they're your future. At this point, Dame's your past. And as much as, Portland, loves and respects Dame, and I'm sure if he wants to, he could probably go out and take 20 shots a game. They shouldn't allow that. They should come in and just play him just enough to show Miami, this is why you should give up the farm for him. Look how impactful he still is. But don't play him too much where he's taking away shots from your young guys. But more importantly, don't let him get hurt and sink his trade value even further.
Let me ask you this. When you saw the package that the Heat put forth, did you think that was a lowball offer or just it wasn't enough? Because when I saw the offer, you knew automatically they were going to include Tyler Hero as probably the centerpiece of that trade. But I'm looking at it from the Portland standpoint. We already have Miles Simons. We already have Shaden Sharp. We already have Scoot Henderson. We actually don't need we don't need Tyler Hero. It seems like they're in desperate need of a third team to pull that trade off because I don't think Tyler Hero has a place on that roster because it's not like Portland's going to be like, well, you send Tyler Hero here and we'll send back Dame and Miles Simons or something like that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, because a lot of people were saying that they should take the Tyler Hero trade, but my first thought was indeed why? They already have 3 young guards they got to play. Why are you adding Hero? Like, that just seems redundant to me. Hero's a great player, but I just don't think he's a fit in Portland. So I think this doesn't get done until they get a third team involved. And I think Portland should probably more so target another forward. Try to target a young forward instead of a guard. They don't need that. Or target a young center to learn behind Nurkic so that maybe you move on from him at some point and you have his replacement ready.
I thought they made interesting moves in the offseason, the Blazers front office did. You went out and you gave Jeremy Grant that max contract. And look, I'm not here to say that Jeremy Grant's not a solid player. That's what he is. He's a solid basketball player. And if you've been following his career, everybody knows that in his proper role on a title contending team, Jeremy Grant's your fourth option. He is. That's just what he is. Now, he can be your leading scorer on a very bad team. He showed us that when he went to Detroit. He put up 20-plus points a game on a team that was getting thumped every night. But I've got a rule about that. All bad teams have a leading scorer. So, no knock against him. But when I saw that contract, I felt like really when Dame saw that contract, he was like, that's what we're doing. That's the big move we're going to do in the offseason. We're keeping Jeremy, bringing me back. And now you got this young kid Scoot in here. How are we going to make this work with me, Scoot, Shaden Sharp, and Simons? And then we've got Jeremy over there making about 160. I just didn't understand all the moves because it's a franchise that's in flux. And I feel like they're in purgatory because you want to move on from your past. But I'm not sure giving Jeremy Grant a long-term contract sets you up for the future. I feel like that was one of those contracts that happened because they had the money to spend and they had to spend it. So they spent it.
Jeremy Grant was probably my least favorite move of the offseason just for that reason. I think Jeremy Grant is best suited for like what Aaron Gordon does in Denver.
100%.
Third option, fourth option. He's going to give you some tough D, and he'll give you a nice spark of scoring, and maybe occasionally he can go off for 20, but he's definitely not worth the money that they gave him. And the fact that they did that and then Dame requested a trade and they still went through with the contract anyway, that was just wild to me. And the hard part is I don't think you can really trade Jeremy Grant now. unless you're ready to either eat a bad contract or you're going to have to give up picks to get rid of him at this point.
You could probably trade him to Charlotte. They'll do it. They'll do it. They'll look at it and go, you know what? This is our number 2. We need that. Charlotte will do it. Well, you know what? I'm joking. The best thing that Charlotte did, or what got done to Charlotte, Mike finally sold the team. Now I know he still is part of the team. He owns a small percentage, but he no longer has control of the team. So going forward, I expect they're going to make a lot. They're going to make a lot of better decisions in terms of draft picks and free agency. One more question though on the NBA. I'm sure you saw this past weekend the guys that went into the Hall of Fame: Dirk, DWade, Tony Parker, and it's a nice group. No question. It's a really nice group. And then DWade came out, because that's the thing now. Everybody's got their own top 10 or their top 5. Whether you're a current player, a player from the past, a player from the past, everybody's dropping their top 5 or top 10 players. Did you see Dwayne Wade's top 5, his all-time team?
Yeah, I did see that. It was definitely interesting. I didn't think it was necessarily a bad team though. So
no, not a bad team at all. Look, LeBron, Kobe, Jordan, I believe Shaq's on that team as well, and Steph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a bad team. The joke that I made was, on that team, Shaq's just going to have to focus on defense and rebounding.
And it's funny, if Shaq shown he could be a dominant defensive and offensive rebounder, and definitely on that team, he'd have a lot more energy towards it. So I doubt anybody could really mess with him on the boards.
I mean, no, go ahead.
No, yeah, I saw that, and I thought it was a really actually solid team. I definitely like it.
Yeah, I mean, look, think about what they could do defensively with Jordan, with Kobe, with LeBron. Just on the perimeter, what those 3 guys could do, they can wreak havoc on any team defensively on the perimeter. Now, if you want to say that if there are any shortcomings, you could make the case that Steph obviously is an elite shooter, the greatest of all time. So you know what he can do from behind the arc. But the other 3 guys, they're streaky more or less from behind the arc. I mean, the other 3 guys do a lot of their work more or less in the mid-range. All 3 can attack the basket, right? We know what Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron can do off the dribble. If you were playing that team, I would have to imagine that those games would last, 4.5, 5 hours, because LeBron's taking about 10 free throws. Kobe and Jordan taking 10, 11 free throws a game. Like, look, Shaq's good for like 10 free throws just because you don't want him to dunk the ball. You'd rather foul him. Like, those games would be marathons just because that team would shoot more free throws during the course of a season than any team in the history of basketball.
I think half my roster would just be those really unskilled player like Greg Ostertag and everybody that was just sitting at the end of the bench just to foul. Like, all right, boy, just get in there. 6 fouls.
Right.
Don't use them all.
Right. I mean, look, I loved his top 5. That was really good. Like, a lot of times you see some of these top 5s or top 10s and they're a little disjointed, but he went out and he picked a team of killers, and I was like, all right, respect for D-Wade. Like, D-Wade's my guy. When we talk about the greatest, if we go top 5 shooting guards of all time, he's easily a top 5 shooting guard. Some would say top 3.
Ooh, yeah, I have Wade at 3. Got me MJ, Kobe, Wade, Harden, and then at 5 is I'm looking into 5. It's a lot closer than I thought. Right now I got Iverson, but I'm really looking into maybe swapping out for my number 6 and George Gervin. So,
and that's an interesting one too, because I'm thinking, is Jerry West more of a combo guard? Because he's kind of a 2, but then he played a lot of point too.
I've always looked at Jerry West as more of a point, but yeah, he's kind of a combo guard. You can kind of throw him either one. Like I said, I've always kind of considered him more of a point, honestly.
Look, Brett, you and I, we can chop up basketball 24/7, 365 with ease. Trust me. We could talk about the current NBA. I feel like you and I could talk about guys from the 90s. Maybe some guys that a lot of fans would be like, who? If I brought up the name Michael Finley, you know who Michael Finley is.
Yeah, he played on Dallas, right?
Yes, sir. Fin Dog, right.
You're talking
No, go ahead.
So you're talking to the guy who got called out on Discord because me and a bunch of buddies were talking about Lamar Odom till 2 a.m. So
Really?
yeah, we're just going through like every individual season, like every stat we could find, and trying to compare him to the rest of the league and how good he really was. It was a lot of fun.
Lamar was a really good all-around player. I remember when he first came out, I think he came out of Rhode Island. I'm pretty sure he came out of Rhode Island. Could do everything on the floor. He had number one talent, but he didn't have the number one mentality. I think Lamar was always comfortable kind of fading to the back. He never wanted to be the guy. And once he found his role as a sort of a point forward, a six man on different teams, he was great on those two Laker title winning teams with Kobe and Gasol. He's an underrated player, underrated defender, just one of those kind of guys that maybe he's not the man, but he's the kind of guy that makes the man's job a lot easier, if you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. He's the perfect all-around complement to Kobe, and especially when you can run a front court with Lamar, Andrew Bynum, and Pau Gasol. You got three bigs that can play make around Kobe, who didn't necessarily look to play make all the time, and that was definitely a big boon for that offense.
I put up a pic last night, and I think you responded to it. And because Chris is gone and the show is a little shorthanded, we'll go out on this last question. In their primes, both at their primes, who do you think's the better basketball player, Vince Carter, Clyde Drexler?
I got Clyde. I think when you look at Vince Carter, he had the better handles and he was the better shooter, but I just think Clyde was pretty much better at everything else. He could throw down as well as Vince. Their playmaking is probably about the same, honestly, but I think Clyde was a much better defender. Not only that, Clyde could also score. He could draw fouls. Like, Clyde was just, to me, an overall, all-around better talent than Vince Carter was.
I thought Clyde was just a better basketball player. I also thought he was a better leader. Maybe something that people don't recognize from Clyde Drexler's resume, but oftentimes he kept that Blazers team. They were in like 4 or 5 conference finals, went to 2 NBA finals. Even later in his career, when he goes to Houston and he helps Olajuwon win that second finals against the Magic, and people were like, well, Clyde was just there. He wasn't in his prime anymore. People forget, in that series, in that finals, where his matchup was Penny Hardaway in his prime, Clyde Drexler averages 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists for the series. That's how great a player he was.
I think a lot of people, too, overstate. Like, they'll say that the Rockets won because Hakeem dominated Shaq. You look, and those numbers are actually a lot closer than you'd think. What really was the difference in that series was the role players. It was Clyde stepping up to drop 20. It was Robert Horry going off. It was Mario Elie dropping 7 threes in a game to set an NBA record up until, later. So I agree, and I think that's a huge misconception about that 95 finals. It was Hakeem dominated Shaq. No, it was the role players that stepped up, and they just didn't miss from 3 and just really buried the Magic.
Right. I would say he outplayed Shaq. He didn't dominate him. He outplayed him, and he might have made plays late in the games, right? So he made timely plays, and maybe Shaq didn't in that series. But if you look at the numbers, like you said, they're very close. He definitely didn't dominate him. I enjoyed watching that series, and you're right. Mario Elie might be one of the most underrated role players in the history of the NBA. So you know what? Everybody out there, smash that like button. Make sure you tune into the Empire. We got a lot of great shows. If you watched last night, you saw back-to-back great football shows. And as football season comes into full swing, you got to follow the Empire. Brett, you and I should do a show on greatest NBA role players all time. That's probably a 2-hour show just on that alone, because we can chop that up. When you brought up the name Mario Elie, I thought, man, another great role player that nobody talks about. Won with the Rockets, and then he won later on with the Spurs. Mario Elie, kiss of death. I won't forget that guy ever. Hey, that's our show today for Coffee Sports in the Morning. Brett and I enjoyed chopping it up. Chris will be back for sure Monday. We will get over the technical difficulties. Will be a lot better for you guys. Coffee and Sports in the Morning. 9 o'clock, Sports Empire Network, Monday through Friday. Check us out and check out all the other great content on the Empire. Sports Empire Network. Brett, let people know where they can find you.
You can catch me on the morning show. You can catch me on Line in the Sand. And I have next Friday off, so I asked to be on Above the Rim. So you can catch me to chop it up with basketball there too next week.
I'm jealous. I want to be on Above the Rim. I'm jealous. All right, people, whoever's running Above the Rim, I know you got some great guys on there. And you just told me Brett's going to be on there. If you have an open slot, I'm the guy. Just invite me. So that's the show. You know where to find me. It's Mo Better, Coffee Sports in the morning, Monday through Fridays, Sports Empire Network. Peace, everybody.